Hey Jay, how's it going, man? Long time no see, since those good old days back in class. You got some great stuff here, man. It's looking really, 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 really cool. I was just gonna go through it and have a look at small little things that you can polish, for this week. But really nice shot, great line of dialogue, very funny as well. Put a bit of a smile to my lips. So yeah, let's go in and let's just have a look at what you got. Some of the stuff that I love is the composition. The mods for Bishop as well are absolutely spot on. There's a lot of time, and stuff put into this. It looks film-like, which is kind of like absolutely great. Um, I think one of the things that I'd look into in your first couple of frames is very much the screen right hand of the character, especially when kind of like you do a little bit of a settle on the table. She kind of like grips the surface, which is great on frame 42, but then that hand kind of like keeps moving as she's cleaning. And it's really distracting because it's very close to the camera. The hand which has got the cloth in it, which she's doing the cleaning with, is actually, doing the main action. But you've got all this secondary action of the hand just kind of like jumping around on the actual table surface, and that's really, really, really distracting. So I'd almost like flip it round, put a bit more emphasis on the cleaning, and get kind of like a bit more movement, in that hand and that shoulder, and leave the other hand very much just locked in the position in frame 42, because you can just leave it like that and the action will still read. You don't have to have her fumbling around so much. So I think kind of like with the other cloth as well, the hand's a little bit flat to an extent, and just very much when she's cleaning, try to see if you can get a little bit of, this type of motion over here where you actually get to feel that the fingers are pushing down at some points and releasing as she's actually cleaning. So when she pushes forward, the fingers bend down, and then as she comes back, the fingers relax. And this little kind of like overlap action can just soften those fingers out and make it feel a little bit much. It's not a huge amount, but if you just put that in a little bit, it'll break up the feeling that you've got with the wrist right now, because currently it's kind of floating a bit like this, and you might want to just add a little bit of an overlap to it to make it feel like she's making a bit more of a stronger contact. So the next thing as well is that when she looks up at that point, I think you could use a little bit of an anticipation around frame 101 over there. Make her just dip a tiny, 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 tiny amount in Y on the hips so that she does, it's not exactly as, a huge take upwards, but just a little bit of an anticipation before she actually comes out around frame 101, and that should be great. The eyes are working fine, everything's good. The only thing that I'd say is try to see if you can get the glasses that she's wearing, maybe just move them up a tiny, tiny, tiny amount, just because you've got a lot of intersecting tangents, especially around frame 91, where the eye line, the glass rim, and the pupil are all kind of like stuck in the same spot. So if I would tilt my head there, so everything's kind of like meeting around here. Try to either move it up so that there's a little gap, on top, of the eyelid, or move it around so that you don't have that strong intersection there. I know that later on, her kind of like she looks over her glasses, but you could almost animate that her glasses just tilt down a little bit, when she goes up and the glasses kind of like come down, and you probably will miss that completely. But that's one of the things that you can just push a little bit further, and that again in frame 114, just avoid the eyes actually tangenting with the glasses rim. See if you can get those a little bit clearer. Then when he's kind of like next shot, and we've got the monster, which is brilliant. Absolutely love him. And he's eating away. It's really cool, the way that he's got kind of like that very nice kind of like, touch here. I think you can add a little bit of overlap to the head right here. Because kind of like, we're in frame 144, he comes up to frame 159, and the head's just kind of like rigid like that. You might want to just give him a little bit of a nod at the end there, where he kind of like goes up, and he just kind of like pushes, his stuff over here. That could kind of like be, in, also a, could be a bit of an acting thing. Like, I don't think you're crazy. You know, just kind of like reassure and affirm it, or at least, you know, just have, you know, just one nod there to actually just, you know, break the head up a little bit and have it a little bit kind of like, you know, just feel like it's a bit more connected to the actual movement of the body as well. The other thing that I'd point out as well on the hands, uh, brushing, you know, him down. That's really kind of like gonna have to play around a little bit with these fingers as well and just loosen those up a little bit so that they kind of like, you know, stroke and come back, stroke and come back, stroke and come back like that. You can actually loop that in the graph editor as well. So, you know, if you manage to get just one of them there, because the timing's always the same on every stroke pretty much. If you get the fingers kind of like just doing one very, very clear motion, you can loop that a couple of times and just take those keys in the graph editor and then copy them, copy them, copy them, and you'll be able to just loosen those fingers up a little bit. So around frame, you know, where does he start this? Yeah, frame 159. When he starts doing his stroking there, you can actually play around that there. And then when he comes over and he looks at her and he offers her the cookie jar, well, the plate of cookies. One of the things that I'd say staging wise you might want to do is actually make that cookie plate and the cookies themselves larger, because currently they're around about, in relation to the hand, they're kind of like this big, and although they look nice in this shot, when you go into the next shot that you've got and she picks one up, it's kind of like tiny in her hand. And actually you can make those cookies much, much larger and they'd still read, you know, so you could have something that's kind of like that big, you know, and that, you know, she's holding up and it's just much, much, much clearer, you know, visually in shot. You could leave them small, but, you know, I think you can just, you know, make them about maybe twice the size that they are right now, and they'd still work very well, and they'd actually be much more visually clearer, for, especially for your next shot that's coming after this one. So he comes over. The moment when he puts his hand on the cookie jar, here's something you can polish as well, where actually the pose that you've got in 209, delay that by about 5 frames, and actually have him put his hand, first of all, on the plate, and then do a little bit of a spread as he actually grips it and pushes it forward like that. And that way, you know, your hand's currently tweening into the shot like this. You want to have it in one position, touch the plate, and then spread. And that way, you know, it'll just again reinforce that contact and give it a little bit more of a sense of weight. Also in frame 209, have a look at his hand, the one that's actually gripping the cookie as well, because the bottom two fingers, sorry, you know, they're just kind of like loose in the air like that. And if he's grabbing something like a cookie or anything like that, think about it here, well, like this, and these hands would be kind of here, you know, a bit more locked into the bottom. So really it's like it's two parts to the hand. There's the pinch up here, and then these fingers would be closed pretty much almost in a fist like that. So just make sure that these two fingers are actually kind of like just in a nice position like that, that you see, that you can see 1, 2, and 3, and just clear that hand up a little bit and make it just a little bit more appealing, and that'll be great. Like the way, you know, that the motion continues from one shot to another. In frame 246, I think you can add a little bit more of a settle to him as he comes back as well. Pretty much a similar note as well to the previous one as well. Try to break up when things happen. So, you know, have the chest come back, leave his head leaning forward, make it come back, and then give him some time to settle. Because currently he's just stopping straight away. Just give him a time to and settle down, you know, and just a very, very, very little smooth, you know, it can either be a head bob or it can be a bit of a rise and a drop with the shoulders as well, and that kind of like, you know, can just soften that action up a little bit. Now, the other thing that I'd say as well is that on frame 248, again, it's a similar note to before, but she's going to grab the cookie that's on the plate. Larger cookie plate makes it better as well, but look at the way she's actually grabbing it in frame 251. She's grabbing her hands like this, so she's pinching and all of her other fingers are perfectly straight, and it just looks really, 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 really weird, because again, if we're going to grab something like that, normally all our fingers go together at the same time. It's just a bit more of a natural motion than that. This seems kind of like a little bit forced, unless you were doing something very over the top, where it's kind of like she comes forward and then she kind of like reaches like that. But again, have a look at what my fingers are doing. They're not straight. So even if I'm grabbing like that, all my fingers are kind of like splayed out in different directions as well. So I think it can work either way, but sometimes it's best to keep things simple and just, do things either quickly and direct, or if you want to do it, that it's a more delicate thing as well. Look especially at that arc of her actually going, picking the cookie up and reaching it out like that. It's very characterful, but keep those fingers spaced out if you want to do it that way, okay? So she leans over. She's a little stiff as well. I think you can break her up a little bit as well. And have a look as well, at the hips as well. She's pretty much rotating from one spot over there. Again, on frame 251, just because you hit that extreme at that point there. Have a look again at the balance, because her head's really forward. You might want to just make her hips move back at the same time. So if you move the hips to screen left, sorry, not screen left, screen right, as she's coming forward, that counterbalances the head. So she leans forward like that, and the hips would naturally go this way as well, just to counter the balance like that. So if her head moves in one way, move the hips back a little way as the back curves forward, and that'll keep her in balance. And then kind of like, you can then, as she comes up again, opposite motion in the other direction over there. So she picks it up. I still think, again, with the pose of the cookies in frame 263, the hand that's holding the cookie, it's those fingers which are kind of like just really getting in the way there. And I think you can add a little bit of a swipe to the hand as well. So picks it up, comes up, and really look at those, see how much movement you can actually get in that spacing, to just really reinforce the line that she's actually, the line of action that it's going through the hand, just like that, and I think you can do kind of like a really nice little swoop like that. I think when she looks away from him in frame 289, it's a bit extreme there. I think you can actually have her rotate her head to screen left a bit more, so that she's not looking completely out of shot. She's a bit more on the side, and just let the eyes point off in that direction. Make sure that you can see the eyes over there. And again, I think if you manage to put, a little either locator here on the glasses and move the pivot point right here and parent locator to the glasses and then the locator to the head, you'll have a little pivot point here that you can actually move and pan around, so that you can always move these glasses out of the way just a little bit and fake it sometimes, just to make sure that your eye lines are always going to be unobstructed by stuff. And yeah, she goes away, she looks, and yeah, I think that blink works really well at the end as well. It's got a nice, real fleshy feeling to it. I love the way that, the eyebrows go down, they come up, and then there's a nice pop with the eyes. Brilliant stuff, man. As I said before, there's loads and loads and loads of great things in here that I haven't commented on at all, but your work's looking great, Jay. Definitely good work, and you're in pretty good shape to hand stuff in this Sunday. So, man, it's been nice looking at your work. If you need any more help, just drop a PR down either at my workspace, private message, or the new little news space that we have at the beginning, and I'll be sure to take another look at it, okay? Have a good time, man, and see you soon. Bye.